Ladies and gentlemen,
this is Gamer Tag Radio.
All right, welcome to a brand new episode of Gamer Tag Radio. And joining me, of course, this is Danny Payne. And joining me, we have co-host Paris Lilly. What's up, Paris?
How you doing, man?
Well, I know the past couple of weeks we've been talking about Asus, the new handheld device that just came out, right? And I know you got it early. I got mine's after, but we've been talking about it a lot on the podcast. Actually, I got the white version. And look, we're going to be talking about everything about the device. And we have a special guest. And please present yourself.
Hey, my name is Whitson Gordon. I am the head of content at ROG.
So, Whitson, how's it been, seeing the feedback from the gamers, good and bad, ever since the release of this device?
It's been awesome. And actually, it started even before that because, I was at Gamescom earlier this year when we kind of had our first debut with the public. And even that was awesome, man. Just being able to kind of walk around the floor and go up to people and be like, hey, what you think? And like some of the stuff that you hear is not necessarily what you expect in terms of the stuff that people are really wowed by. So, yeah, it's been really great. It's always so interesting to release a product and get that first giant wave of feedback because ultimately the feedback is what drives everything we do, right? If people are already jotting down we've watched all the reviews, we're all over Reddit and Discord, writing everything down, getting ready for the next phase of updates and stuff.
It's ironic. I was one of the people in the public at Gamescom, and you're talking to various people because I went over to the Asus booth, and because I first got hands on over at the Xbox booth, and then I went over to Asus, and I was like, oh wait, the Xbox Ally, the white version, was there, and I was like, oh, I really want to get hands on and check this out. And you were kind of mingling with people and talking to people over at the booth. So yeah, I found the reception at Gamescom to be pretty positive, just from what people, getting direct hands on. And I just took the fact that you were allowing, and obviously you know how crazy Gamescom can be, the fact that anyone can walk up and pick up that device and be able to use it on the show floor showed a lot of confidence in the device. Now, I have to jump right into my question before I forget here. Speaking of Xbox, you've obviously collaborated with them. That's been well documented. We've seen everything leading up to this, up to launch. But what about post-launch? Will that collaboration with Xbox continue? And I'm speaking more specifically about the Ally X and the Ally. Will you continue to work with Xbox as far as, updating and improving on consumer feedback?
Absolutely. Yes, 100%. There are different sides to this, right? There's we made the hardware and like that Armory Crate software, a lot of that falls on us. But a lot of the kind of what the 1,000-foot picture of this device, right, looks like, Xbox was also very involved with that, and we've been providing them a lot of feedback from what we see from our community, because sometimes the two communities can be different groups of people and may have different feedback, right? And so it's really important that we are synthesizing as much of that feedback as possible, and that both companies are kind of taking all that stuff into account. So definitely.
No, that's good. Well, I'm going to ask you a question from my experience from the Xbox Ally here. So, I remember getting it. A lot of people, because I really wanted to test out the white. I know the black has been getting a lot of great feedback about it too, right? But I was curious to see like what type of games, because I know this is a kind of like, I could compare this to like the Xbox Series S, right? Like it's not going to look as great as the powerful console, but I play a couple games there that I experienced, and it was a lot of fun. Like it was great. I tried out Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I tried out The Outer Worlds 2 and so on, right? But there's going to be gamers that they're not used to these type of handheld devices, PC handhelds, right? So what advice would we tell them, like for them, why they should try this out compared to like other handhelds out there that, there's out on the market?
That's a really good question. And it is interesting to see, because if you actually look back at the last few years, the PC gaming community has actually been growing quite a bit. And so I think that, in my head, I don't like to separate the PC handhelds as like this kind of separate thing. And it may be some people's first exposure to like the Windows platform. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be their only exposure, because we've seen more and more people get into PC gaming over the last few years because they love, what platform other than Windows has as many games available to it as Windows does. What platform other than Windows gives you the crazy amount of flexibility you have in how that game looks and feels? And I think that that's something that's really attractive to people. So even if it's their first time kind of diving in, and sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming, once you start playing around with it, I think a lot of people are really going to like how much power they have over that end-to-end experience.
I have to say, the speakers, one of the loudest speakers I've ever heard in any handheld device. It's crazy.
Dude,
the sound.
I love this. I still remember when I got the first ROG Ally, my pre-production unit, we were like, whoa, these speakers are really better than they have any right to be on a handheld. And it's funny how many people, that's one of those examples of feedback that I don't know if I would have expected as many people to get as hyped about the speakers as they have, right? Because you think of a handheld, that's something that I'm playing on the train, or I'm playing like when I'm out and about, and I'm usually playing with headphones. So I would think to myself, people probably won't care about the speakers that much. But the number of people that come up to me, online or in person, are like, dude, the speakers are awesome. More than I would have expected, which is really cool.
Yeah. Paris?
So, yeah, follow-up question to what I was originally asking about the collaboration with Xbox and continuing that. So during our review, probably one of my critiques was the Xbox full screen experience, and that it works. I mean, it obviously playing games on this has been great. That is not the complaint, but it still feels like there's work that still needs to be done. So even talking with Xbox during the review period, one of my critiques is about how updates are being handled. I understand I had pre-release. It took like 2 hours to update everything between Windows and Armory Crate and all that. But that leads me to that question. Is there any discussion about essentially synergizing the updates that not only you're going to have to do with Windows, but what Asus has with Armory Crate, so that you never have to leave any experience that you're in? So if I'm in the Xbox full screen experience, I'm able to do all those updates from there. I'm not forced to go into settings. I have to go into Windows settings, go to Windows update. Then I have to go to Armory Crate, then go to the update there to be able to get everything synced up and updated as needed. So sort of any discussions about kind of curating that update process with the Ally?
Yeah, of course. We know that is one of the bigger pieces of feedback that people have. And of course, like the bigger the piece of feedback, the more seriously we take it. Now, what form that's going to take, I can't necessarily tell you what that's going to look like down the line, especially because, again, this is a partnership, but we're not the same company. So a lot of that falls on Microsoft. But it is a collaboration, and part of that, like you've mentioned, is Armory Crate SE and things like that. So yes, we're absolutely talking about that. One thing I'll say is that, like any day one console or PC you get, you're going to have a few more updates on that day one than you are kind of going forward, especially in a pre-release period like you had. My experience so far past that initial setup has actually been quite good, because I generally get notified when there's an update. I don't go into Windows Update and check. It'll give me a pop-up and say oh, hey, we downloaded some updates for you in the background. When you're ready to restart, hit this button. Or when the Xbox app has an update, I just get a notification. I'm like, all right, cool. And so I think yes, I think that experience past day one is a bit more seamless than maybe that day one experience people first have. But our goal is always to make it better, right? You said oh, I feel like this still has some work to be done. Our work is never truly finished, right? That's the thing about making something like this, is we're always listening to feedback and always pushing it forward. And even when you think man, we've really nailed it, the gaming community evolves and the gaming ecosystem evolves, and all of a sudden you've got a whole new batch of things to think about, which is, for example, why we put an NPU in that ROG Xbox Ally X. Yeah, we've got some features planned for that, but a lot of that inclusion was also knowing that in the more medium to long term, there are going to be games or Xbox experiences that might use AI in ways we don't even consider yet. And we wanted the device to be kind of future ready for that. And so it's kind of always about looking ahead in the short term, but then also the medium and long term.
Mm-hmm. What about the people that still have the older handheld? Are you guys just done with it?
No,
done with those devices?
Not. Are you kidding?
Okay. No, because I'm wondering because it seems like you guys are, and I get it's the new thing now, so that's been the focus, right? But what about those that still has, or maybe new people that want to? Maybe this is the cheaper way for them to purchase that one too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we are still committed to supporting those devices. One thing that kind of when we first announced this, that was one of the first questions we got. We're like, okay, but am I going to get the full screen experience on my Ally or Ally X? Now, an interesting thing about that is that a lot of the kind of total package of the experience isn't just one update, right? The Xbox full screen experience, like the way that Xbox app works, is one thing. Some of the other changes to Windows, like being able to navigate the on-screen keyboard with the joysticks, that's a separate thing. And the command center integrated into Game Bar with some of those new features, that's a different thing entirely, right? And so we actually have already rolled out some of those things to the original Ally, right? Like they have that new Game Bar experience, for example. But our plan is to get as much of that stuff as we can to those previous devices, and we're still going to be providing them updates just like we do with our laptops, years down the line, because we don't want to leave people out in the cold, right? That's not our goal. We're not trying to like manufacture FOMO and force you to go buy a new device every single year. People that want to do that, we're happy to have you do it. But people who, not everyone wants to do that. People want to buy something, have it work for a reasonable amount of time and get those updates, and we want to provide that to them. Absolutely.
Good to know.
So you mentioned older devices. So I do have the original, and I put SteamOS on this. And I know I'm diverting a little bit from the Xbox of things, but I put the native SteamOS on this and not Bazite. Works fantastic. Are there any discussions or anything? Because obviously the ETA Primes and the Foxes of the world, they've already put Bazite on the Xbox Ally X. Could anyone expect native SteamOS support as well?
Okay, so you're getting into an area that maybe I can't give you as detailed answers as you like, but look, I'll put it this way. We're always discussing things. Nothing's ever truly off the table in like the ROG lab, right? And in terms of support, like so that would also not just be on us, but on Valve or whoever else you want to talk about in terms of making another OS that supports our device, right? There's partnership and then there's device support, sometimes two different things. But, I can't announce anything that hasn't been announced, but we're always considering every option. We're never closing ourselves off to anything. But at the same time, like, we're really proud of what we've done with Microsoft. And like, to us, this is a lot of where the future of handheld gaming is going. And, we've been because long before we were making handhelds, we were making Windows laptops, PC components. Windows is where a lot of our focus has been for the entire history of our brand. And so that'll always be a part of what we do.
And Danny, if you don't mind, I actually want to follow up on that because, I may or may not have said that Windows handhelds might be the future of where all this stuff is going. But I would love to get your perspective on what you just said, that the focus has been more on Windows. So speaking on that, is it because the flexibility that Windows is going to be able to give you as far as having multiple digital stores, having the ability to have various third-party applications installed on here? But even with that said, and I think this again goes to some of my critiques during review period with Windows, because again, I like the device, but I do still prefer the Steam Deck. I do still prefer SteamOS because I feel they've nailed the UI experience there. So is a part of what you're talking about is, again, collaborating obviously with Microsoft, is curating that user experience. So it is more user friendly. So it is, I'm just pressing the power button. I'm booting into the Xbox experience. There's my games. I'm off and I'm going playing them. And I'm never forced to now I got to go back to Windows Desktop or I got to go to Windows, all the other things that I was talking about previously.
Yeah, man, you nailed it. That's the whole goal behind all of this, right? Like it's when you look back at the past 2 years of the ROG Ally, I said this before and I repeat this like a broken record, but everything that we have done has been a direct response to the feedback that we've gotten from users, from reviewers like you, from everyone, right? Every software update and feature we've added to the device, every hardware improvement we made to the Ally X after the original Ally launch, all of that was in response to what people were telling us they wanted. And one of the biggest kind of still outstanding pieces of feedback we had after those two devices was, I want this to be pick up and play. I want it to feel more like a console, even though people really do like that flexibility of Windows. And so do we. That's one of the reasons we stuck with it, as you said, is we love the wide game compatibility. We love having the ability to use those multiple storefronts to mod your games, right? Do all that fun Windows stuff that you want to do with it. But we also know that this is a different device than a desktop PC in a lot of ways. It is a little bit more pick up and play because it's portable. You want it to be quick immediately into your games. You want that. Even PC gamers want that more console-like experience on this. And so that was one of the reasons we originally kind of partnered with Xbox and said, okay, we can do a lot, and we did do a lot to Armory Crate to make that library feel as seamless and easy to navigate as possible. But who can take that to the next level? I mean, Microsoft, right? Xbox has been in the console gaming business for years, and they have access to a lot of the deeper things in Windows that can make this a more seamless experience for gamers, kind of like you were talking about earlier. So 100%. And I look forward to one day the Ally being your favorite handheld.
One day. Yeah. Wait, so I was going to ask you too, like, what about the dock experience? I know everybody's talking about a lot about the on the go, but there's people like, hey, I want to play on the big screen. You guys really haven't really been pushing that as much as
It's funny because we actually did originally. That was one of the when we first launched the original the original ROG Ally, the white one that Paris was showing. One of our big things in like our marketing materials and stuff was like, you can play it handheld, you can dock it to a PC monitor and keyboard and kind of use it as a desktop gaming PC that way. You could hook it up to a TV and use game pads. That was a really big focus for us. And ultimately, all of that is still just as possible as it was then. I think most people tend to play it handheld the vast majority of the time. But again, that's one of those like benefits of a device that runs Windows and is in that kind of ecosystem. Is like, you could totally, I mean, we have people in our community that are using this as their only PC. That play it on the go, come home, dock it, and they'll browse the web on it or do whatever, right? And that is one of the things that we and Microsoft have planned for the near future, and I think this has actually already been officially announced, is that we are working on improvements to the docking experience to try and make it kind of as seamless as possible, right? Plug it in and you've got a console on your TV that you can play with an external controller. So that is something that is coming, I think early next year is what we're slating for that.
Oh, that's good to know. Really good to know. Now, so I had to do a research because I wanted to increase my performance on my device. So I'll go to like YouTube and learn from other creators that also have the device, especially the white one, right? So, and I figure out how to increase my performance, and it's a lot better now with certain games I've been playing. Is there a way for users that are not into that techie, let me change the settings, to make it easier for them to increase the performance or whatever? Maybe they want to play a high quality mode or whatever. Is there a way where it will be a lot easier than going deep into finding videos online and stuff like that for the future, like through updates that you guys have planned?
It's so funny that you mentioned that because yes, there is. I feel like you guys are like reading my mind here. So I am one of those people that like loves kind of tweaking those settings and stuff. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. It's a pick up and play device. You want it to be as seamless as possible. And again, that's one of the reasons that we thought, okay, partnering with Microsoft could be really valuable in this arena because not only do they have access to the Windows side of things, but they also own a bunch of publishers and developers. They also have deep relationships with a bunch of publishers and developers and can do, kind of have the weight to throw behind not just a device like this, but a whole ecosystem of handhelds and make handhelds first-class citizens in the worlds of PC gaming. And so, first of all, one thing that you'll start to notice soon and has already started to happen is that you're going to see more handheld graphics presets in games that may automatically be enabled when you launch them on a handheld. Doom the Dark Ages just got that update, I think, like a week or two ago. So if you launch Doom the Dark Ages on your handheld, my understanding, I haven't done it since the update, but my understanding is that it should be even more kind of optimized out of the gate for your handheld. Awesome. But the other thing that Microsoft and us have announced, again, I think we're looking at early next year, possibly even sooner for this, is kind of an automatic default game profile. So
yes.
Something that, the operating modes that you can play with in the command center, like the silent performance turbo, those are really great and allow you to really customize your experience. But what we would like to do, and what's kind of going to happen, is something that balances frame rate and energy use kind of on the fly to just out of the box give you a smooth, enjoyable experience. Just when you first launch the game, right? Like that's kind of the end goal here is like you should just launch it and play it and it feels good and doesn't like drain your battery with needless frames that you don't necessarily. It's just going to like target a certain frame rate and you'll be good to go. So yeah, that's on the way.
That's good. Good to know.
So, I mean, you're reading my mind because you're literally saying the things that I was going to ask about. But just to follow up on that, and because I was assuming this was more of a Microsoft question than an Asus question, but it sounds like you are going to be involved as far as setting up these default profiles and making sure, again, it's a pick up and play experience. Like, here's what we think is the best setting for this game. You hit launch, you're playing. Like I will say as an example, I'm a tinkerer. But I always try and look at this from the perspective of someone that just wants to play a game, right? They don't want to go and tinker. So I've gone in, I love Cyberpunk 2077. So I've tinkered it. I got it to the point where I'm hitting 60. I got low, on the low setting for ray tracing. Looks great.
I heard that in your review and I was shocked. I was like, he's playing ray tracing on this thing? That's awesome.
Yeah, you can, but you got to go in and change a whole bunch of other things on the settings to be able to get that. But it sounds like what you're saying is, along with Microsoft, you're working because they obviously have the badge, the badges they're putting in for saying, hey, this is handheld compatible, somewhat compatible, things like that. So you're a part of that process of what they're doing.
So there's different aspects to it, right? Again,
Okay.
It's not all one monolithic thing. So we're involved in kind of different levels for different aspects of that experience, right? So when we're talking about the default game profiles, that is kind of specific to this hardware, right? And the white one,
and that's
which
what
is
I
not
assume.
within arm's reach of mine right now. Like that's not just tweaking the game settings, which is like, more on Microsoft's side than ours, but that's tweaking the operating mode, the wattage applied to the chip, and that's specific to this hardware. And so that is something that we're a little bit more involved with because it is specifically adjusting the wattage of the chip that we put in this device, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. But one other thing really quick, Danny, because this one, you probably aren't involved in this one, but I do want to just say, like, if it's in focus. So this is obviously mine. You may or may not see the icons here because these are Steam games. If I have any request, if it's Asus, Microsoft, or whoever, please give us a way to pull in the artwork from another digital store into the Xbox experience.
Yeah,
if I have
true.
any minor critique, it would be that. It would be someone actually figured it out. There's a manual way you can script it out.
I know,
and do
I've seen it.
Yeah, but I would love for it to just work, and I don't have to do all that.
I would too. We know that's a big piece of feedback. It's one of the first pieces of feedback I gave too. And again, like one of the things that Microsoft keeps saying, which I love, is that the Xbox team is like, this is just the beginning. There's so much more that they have planned that we have planned. Yeah. And we hear all of the feedback and we know what the feedback is. There's some things have more complications, right?
Yeah. But I do think that's what you're saying is kind of the biggest thing about this, that not only from an Asus standpoint, but from a Microsoft Xbox standpoint, is communicating that this is step one in a multi-step process. What you're seeing today is not what this device and the software is going to look like 6 months from now. I think I kind of understand that. And just obviously talking to people leading up to launch, but the feedback that I have seen from people is they expect this to be, I don't know, what the Steam Deck is or what the Nintendo Switch 2 is day one. And they've obviously had years of lessons learned to get there. Whereas you're kind of with this partnership starting from somewhat scratch. Obviously you've made hardware in the past, but this collaboration of software and hardware, this is, early days for you.
Yeah. There's a lot planned and I'm really excited about where it's headed. And I don't even know that, I know a piece of what's coming, right? And there's so much more on the roadmap that I'm super psyched to see where this device is in 6 months, a year. Because even before this partnership, right, that was something that if you look at where the ROG Ally has come just from day one of the original white Ally to where we were with the Ally X right before this launch, that was a huge difference. Because one of the things that we wanted to do was listen to the feedback to know what people thought was more important and then pop those to the top of the priority list and start pumping out those updates as fast as we could.
Yeah. What are the things that surprised you the most after these devices came out? the past couple of weeks? Was there anything that surprised? I know you got surprised with Paris changing the settings for Cyberpunk, but was there anything else that surprised you as a team? Like, oh wow, really? You could do that? Was there anything like that?
Oh, in terms of like what the device is capable of? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that I knew, right? Because I was there as the device was being developed and stuff. But there's always stuff that I'm surprised to hear, like I mentioned, to hear from other people that is like their first impression. And there was stuff that I was surprised when I started playing. So one of the things that like, this was one of the most popular things I heard at Gamescom. Everyone is going around playing this, and I'm going around and I'm like, hey, what'd you think? And everyone said, it's a lot lighter than I expected. Like, or it feels a lot lighter than I expected.
Yeah, that's
but it's
the
not.
big
And I know
thing.
you
Yeah.
talked about this in your review because it's not actually lighter. They're just like, why does it feel so much lighter than it is? And like, yeah, it's those grips on the side. When you have something like the original Ally, you're kind of propping it up in your palms like this, right? And all of the weight is kind of held on these smaller pressure points. Whereas when you can like really wrap your hands around those grips and you're distributing that weight, and some of that is also the way that the weight is distributed within the device and back to front and stuff like that, it feels so much lighter and it's so easy to hold for such long periods of time. But I was surprised at how many people caught on to that, even if they couldn't put their finger on why. So that was really cool. The other one, and this was kind of funny, and this is also something you brought up in your review, Paris, that maybe I can help clarify a little bit. So when I first got my unit here, I was in the middle of playing Expedition 33, which I was playing it on my PC and also on my ROG Ally X as I kind of swap back and forth. And it runs well on the ROG Ally X, but I was really looking forward to see what the performance jump on that Z2 Extreme was going to be. Mm-hmm. So I started playing it, and I was like, okay, this plays well. It's not really as big of a jump in performance as I thought it was going to be. So I was kind of like, that was a little disappointing. And after about an hour of playing, I realized it was because I was in performance mode and not turbo mode. The efficiency of this chip is so bonkers that performance mode on the Z2 Extreme is roughly similar to turbo mode on the Z1 Extreme.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't realize that I wasn't maxing out the chip. And so I was playing at roughly the same performance as the previous device, but with much less power usage, significantly longer battery life, right? And so I know this was, so that was like really surprising to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't even notice. The fact that I didn't notice I was in the wrong mode is a testament to how awesome that chip is. One of the things you mentioned in your review was like, when I max out the chip, I'm getting similar battery life to like what I was getting on the original or on the last gen Ally X. Right. I thought this chip was supposed to be more efficient. And it is, because in that situation, you should be getting more performance. Now, what's really cool is that if you have a game that runs well in turbo mode on the Ally, right? Like Forza Horizon 5 is one of my favorite games, for example. And I can get, like, with my settings, I can get a solid 60 in turbo mode with, like, some of the graphics settings turned up where I like them on the Ally X. Now I can play with those same settings and target that same frame rate in performance mode on this device and get more battery life out of it. So that's where that like efficiency comes into play, is not efficiency at the same wattage level, but at the same performance level with lower wattage. And that's how we're able to, because some of the biggest jumps in performance on this are actually in the middle of that wattage spectrum. And so that was one of the really, really exciting things to me, is like, I played so many things in turbo on my old Ally, and now on this, I can play most of the games that I play in performance mode, get the same performance, and stretch my battery life an extra hour or two. Really cool.
That is great to know, because I did not do that because I was obviously trying to stress test it out to see with the battery.
You're trying to push the device to its max.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, the battery is similar to what it was, which I was not surprised by that. But you're saying where it is going to be more efficient is, hey, lower the wattage down a little bit, go to performance, and you are going to still get those, the visuals and the frames that you would expect, but the battery is going to last longer. So that's good to know. Which, a follow up to that, so could we expect even better performance or more efficiency as driver updates, things like that, come out for the device as we move forward?
To an extent, sure. I mean, it always depends on the updates and some of the, like when you get driver updates, a lot of the times the best performance games come from newer games that maybe haven't had all of the driver optimizations yet. So it depends on the game. It depends on the driver update. Things like this default game profiles thing that we talked about, I think that's going to help a lot, especially in terms of efficiency, because it's going to be kind of adjusting the wattage as it targets that performance level. But yeah, so it's really, it depends on if you're looking for performance or efficiency, because we're measuring efficiency as performance per watt, not just frames. And yeah, it depends, but it's always a possibility. And the other thing too that I've seen with the original ROG Ally and Ally X that sometimes surprised me is it's not just like driver updates, but sometimes a game will update, especially when you look at some developers that are really good at continually pushing out updates to their games. And it's like, oh, now all of a sudden this game runs like 10% better on my device just because the game updated. Or like it got FSR3 frame generation and now it looks better and the frame generation makes it perform. It's all of a sudden like it's like having a new device a year later because of all the feature updates that have come out. So
can you give me the lotto numbers next week? Because you're answering everything before I can ask it. But I'm glad you said that.
My
because
job
that was
is
my
safe
other
for
point.
another day.
Yeah, the fact that developers themselves can go back and optimize their games more for this device as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if they're always doing it for this device necessarily. I mean, one of the examples that I remember in particular was Spider-Man. Like one day I picked up Spider-Man on the Ally and I was like, why does this run so much better than I remember? And it's like, oh, Nixie's is really good at pushing out updates and they added the new version of FSR and all of this stuff. But yes, also because developers can go update for this device like we talked about with Doom the Dark Ages, right? And again, that's one of the advantages of having Microsoft as a partner is like, let's really work together to make this make developers target this device for good performance and optimization. And it's not just performance, but when you look at that handheld optimized badge in the Xbox store, that includes things like, does it give you the correct button prompts in the game? Is the text big enough for a 7-inch screen versus the 30, 40, 60-inch screen that many of these games were originally developed for? All of that kind of stuff also goes into targeting these devices for those games. And I'm excited to see that continue to grow and improve over time as well.
Oh, yeah, please increase the text, because the other day I was trying to play Call of Duty. My eyes was hurting. I was like, wait, now the text. Now the game is fine. It was just me trying to find like the mode and everything. It was just complicated for me, man. It was hard.
Even for some reason, when you said that, I thought you were like talking about in-game. I was like, what are you reading in-game?
No, text. There's more text.
All the signs.
No, but another.
Oh, you can fix that because I did it, but go ahead.
Oh, really? I didn't know that because I always try to download games and then it goes to sleep mode and I'm like, oh, wait, I got to press again and download. I just wanted an easier way instead of me changing settings, Paris.
You don't need me. Paris can just answer all the questions for me now. No, I'm kidding, because there are multiple ways to fix this, right? Like, so we do have a setting in Armory Crate that can that will help with that. If you go into some of like the eco settings, like prevent it from turning the screen off and going to sleep, things like that. But then also, you're right. Tweaking settings in like Windows settings, which you can get to from the game bar, right? You don't need to leave the full screen experience for that to go into Windows settings and say, hey, maybe only when the device is plugged in, let's leave it on and make sure it doesn't go to sleep. Because part of the reason that's there, right, is you don't want someone to put down their device, forget about it, and then the battery's drained. So it's sometimes it's a double-edged sword, and you have to kind of work with competing feedback to figure out what the optimal settings are for everyone, and nothing's going to be perfect for everyone, but that's why we give you those settings to tweak. I use Hibernate. Instead, I turn sleep off entirely, and I like it so that when I press the power button, it just hibernates. Because the way that I play, I might put the handheld down and not come back to it for a week, and I don't want any battery drain from sleep. And so that just fits my use case better than someone else who might prefer sleep because it's faster to turn on and off. That's the beauty of having those settings.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's in someone's sprint somewhere between Asus and Microsoft to figure it out, because I think the best of both worlds of that would be, thinking of this from a console perspective, is if I started a download and I quote unquote put it to sleep, it'll finish what it's doing and then it'll go to sleep. So look, fingers crossed. I hope that's, will come eventually. But that again just goes back to everything that we talked about, just the process of these are early days. I'm assuming part of this is you are getting feedback from the community, hearing what they like, what they don't like, what can be tweaked, and then obviously continue to work with Microsoft, to curate that and make it more accessible and user friendly.
Yes.
Going back to something you were saying before, and I'm not trying to get a new hardware announcement because I know you won't tell me anyways, but I do think when we're talking about the weight of this and that it is heavier, but just the ergonomics of this makes it so easy to hold for long play sessions. And it does feel light because it's so balanced out. So without, no any hardware announcements, is it safe to say that this collaboration with Xbox to come up with this design kind of goes into future thinking for hardware that you may or may not come out with beyond the Ally X?
It's funny, you're not the first person. You're not the first person to ask me that. Yeah,
there's so many acronyms. I always screwed up, but yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. It is funny how many people we'll be at an event before the device is launched and people be like, what about the next device? And I'm like, bro, this one isn't even out yet. But it's a good question. And my answer is always vague, not just because we haven't announced a device yet, but because, like we've talked about, so much of what we do is based on the feedback that we get. And so, while I would love to say this is where we're headed, right? 100%. That's not always how it works out. When we see what people want, we'll pivot. And that's how we got to where we are. I mean, talking about weight and battery, right? This is a great example. Because, we try to be transparent with these things, what our thought process is, so people understand why the device is the way it is. When we released that first ROG Ally, that white one, we were really, really focused on getting it as lightweight as possible. That was one of our top priorities, right? Because we wanted it to be comfortable to hold. And what we quickly learned after releasing it was that people did like how lightweight it was, but people cared far more about the battery life of the device. And right, so you that, but yeah, so we went, oh man, we maybe prioritize things a little incorrectly. And so now when we went and did the Ally X, it was like, okay, people are willing to have a little bit more weight to the device. Let's double the size of the battery, right? Because that's what's at the top of people's priority lists, and we need to reassess. And we do that every single generation, right? And hopefully the more devices we release, the less we're making really big changes, right? And we're just fine-tuning as we kind of really dial in what it is that people want. But that's a great example of something where user feedback drove us to go in probably a different direction than we had originally thought we would go with the next Ally.
I have a question about that, about Xbox and you guys, how that relationship started. Who started the conversation? Hey, let's work on a Handheld together or something. Was it you guys that pitched that to Xbox, or was it Xbox?
Who approached who at the bar?
Yeah, I always been curious about that. Who started that conversation, and how long was that conversation, that process too?
It's funny because when you look at it from the outside, it feels like all of a sudden this just came about. Someone one day was like, you know what? We should just do this together. But it's not always that cut and dry, right? Because we've been partners with Microsoft for a long time. We worked with them. I mean, we worked with them on all of our laptops and stuff, right? We were partnered with them on the original ROG Ally in a lot of, that device came with 3 months of Game Pass bundled in. Some of Microsoft's folks were at the original ROG Ally announcement event. And already we were talking about they were like, hey, what kind of things would you like to see in Windows to really kind of push this platform forward? And so that conversation has kind of always been going on in some sense. And it's more like that partnership just grew and grew and grew. And that conversation escalated to the point of this device being a reality.
That's good to know, man. Go ahead.
Now, I have some user feedback that I will give to you live. So, and this is bad in focus, but you may see a button there at the top that is the library button.
Yeah.
And it is probably the most pressed by accident button that I have on this device, because my natural flow is to hit the Xbox button. And once I'm in that experience, if I need to go to the library, I'll just navigate to it. That button feels unnecessary. And when you're just naturally playing, I'm accidentally hitting it while I'm in a game. And now I'm launching the library and taking me out of the experience or something like that. So if I have any user feedback for future devices, get rid of that button because we don't need it for anything that is Xbox related. Let's put it that way.
So this is a really great example of where you get a bunch of feedback and some of the feedback is competing and you have to figure out how to synthesize these. Because what's really funny is I use that button all the freaking time. Like that's how I get to the library all the time. And so, okay, now you've got a situation where like you want people to get rid of the button. You want people who use the button all the time. What's the solution? Because there's no one thing that's going to, like, if you do one, you're going to make the other group mad, and you do the other thing, you're going to make the other group mad. And so then you have to look at, okay, what's the real reason for the feedback? What's the real ask? And the real ask is this button shouldn't impede my experience, right? That's the real ask. And so, what that looks like, I don't know yet. One of the common pieces of feedback we have, for example, is people being like, okay, can I remap the button or unmap the button, right? That would solve the problem without ruining the experience for those that do use the button. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the final solution, but like those are the kinds of things that we are always thinking about to try and make you can never make everybody perfectly happy, but trying to make as many people happy and give as many people the experience that they want as possible. So yes, we do know that is a piece of feedback, and that is something that is in our heads, 100%.
Yeah, and I think it just simply comes down to kind of a twofold thing. The start button is right below it, so you're going to fat finger, and that button is there, and the fact that this is being presented as an Xbox device. That Xbox button is very prominent, and it becomes very intuitive to use it to navigate, to get to various things. So it just, for me, feels unnecessary. Like, I don't need that to the library because I'm gonna hit the Xbox button to go to the library. Why do I have this here? So, and to your point, people like yourself, you're gonna use it, whereas I don't. So I do think the short-term solution is just map it into an unusable button or something like that. But if I've seen any feedback, and I think Danny has said this too, is that's one of the bigger critiques that I've seen from people that have gotten it. It's like, I don't use this button. Why is it here? It's getting in my way.
Well, and yeah, 100%. It's every time we release a device, it's kind of like looking at how people are using it. We had people that this has never happened to me, but again, because everyone's hands are different, everyone uses the device in slightly different ways. We had people saying like, "Oh, I'm touching the screen when I move the joystick sometimes because my finger drifts over." And it's like, okay, so on this device, we gave you an option to disable the touch screen so that you're not constantly accidentally hitting the screen and your character goes like this. Always trying to learn, always trying to watch how people use the device and see what the feedback is and think of whatever the best. And maybe one day the best solution is removing the button. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but before we do something, we always try to look at every possible angle to figure out what is the solution that is going to make the most people happy. And that goes for the software, that goes for developing the hardware in the first place, and then iterating on that hardware in the future.
Well, I don't know if I should ask this question or not, but
ask it now.
I mean, look, the conversation's been going around everywhere. Is this an Xbox? Is it an Xbox? So I just want to hear your thoughts about that, because I get I get from the marketing side what Xbox is trying to do and promote this product and other things too, right? But the consumers, they'll pick this up and thinking, oh, I could play my console games. I could play, it's an Xbox, so the messaging sometimes it could get lost. It could get confusing for the people that don't read the blogs. They don't go out there and look on YouTube videos and all that. But the casual audience, they see that, it could get kind of confusing. So I just want to hear your thoughts about that, of the messaging from your guys and also from Xbox of promoting this product to the consumers.
I don't want to overstep my bounds here, because that really is more of a question for Xbox than it is for us. To me, yes, this is an Xbox, right? This absolutely fits into what Microsoft is saying an Xbox is here and going forward. And I know you guys did an interview with Phil Spencer not too long ago, right? Where you guys maybe talked a little bit about this and what the definition of an Xbox is from now into the future. And so yes, like this is an Xbox. Ultimately, that is like the answer. But the deeper answer of what does it mean to be an Xbox, that's something that I would like to leave for Xbox to answer so that I don't talk out of turn because, I'm not the one driving the driving force of what that means.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
And I think that's fair because you're Asus, so you're not Microsoft
Exactly.
or Xbox. So it is up to Xbox to properly define that. But I think pivoting off of that, also with you being Asus, you're going to make other devices. You're going to do other things that aren't necessarily Xbox related. It's just this partnership was with them. And again, you may not be able to say this, but I'll just ask anyways, since we're asking these kind of questions.
Yeah.
You're not going to answer it, but I'll say it anyway. Can we expect future partnerships with Xbox and devices moving forward?
Maybe. Who knows what the future? I mean, look, like I said, I'll put it this way. Let's not, again, I'll say a few of the things that I've said again, and that will probably give you a pretty decent answer to your question. Yeah. We've been partners with Microsoft for a very long time, and we've worked with them in varying capacities on a bunch of different devices. I think that, first of all, we've already announced a product coming very, very soon that was done in partnership with Xbox. That's our ROG Valkyrie 2 controller. That is an Xbox certified controller. It's got an Xbox button. You can pair it with your Xbox normally, but it also has like the Armory Crate button and stuff on it because it's designed for people who want to dock their Ally to a TV and play with that. So, like, yes, there will always be products like that we are working with Xbox on in some capacity. I'm sure, because we do think that this, again, is where handheld gaming is going. So I would not be surprised to see more things done in partnership with Xbox in the future. But also, like I said, the world changes fast. You never know. We're always pivoting to whatever needs to be done in the moment. But I mean, come on, this is a big leap in the right direction for handhelds, and that's where things are going, right? Like you said.
Yeah, Paris, let them send updates before making more announcements.
Yeah. Things that haven't even been decided yet. I'm like, I gotta announce this on stream. I guess I'm making the decision today.
Yeah.
It's so good. Anything else, Paris?
Yeah, actually I do, because we've really not talked at all about, I just say the white version because there's so many acronyms, but the Xbox Ally.
Yeah.
My question, and Danny has it, I don't, so I don't have any hands-on, at home, performance tests or anything. How I'm trying to say this. Who is that device for? Look, let's take price out of it for a second, because we all have our various opinions about pricing, but that is the quote unquote lesser device. That is the 720p device. So who is that for? If I'm making sense on that, who's that device for in comparison to the Ally X?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have to, I'm going to push back a little bit on the question here, because I don't think you could take price out of it. And let me kind of give you the bigger picture here, because when we go to make a device, there is a push and pull between a lot of different things, right? We have to fit in the features that most people want, while balancing that with our capabilities as a hardware manufacturer and the price of the device. That is actually a crucial component of the whole drawing board when we're creating a device, right? We had a lot of people, for example, asking us they want the most premium handheld that you could possibly make, right? We have so many people being like, why don't you put this in the device, put this in it, put this in it, put this in it. And I'm like, okay, but that device is going to cost like $2,000. Like, right? So you can't put that in a vacuum, because if you make that device, right, put yourself in the shoes of the people running the business, you make that device, you'll have fewer people buying it. And then you're not maximizing like what you can really get out of trying to spread this platform and get this handheld into as many people's hands as possible. Now, on the flip side, if you make a more affordable device that is not appealing to the people who are willing to spend more and who want the best performance, right, the hardcore tech enthusiasts, you're going to miss out on that big portion of the audience, which is why we ultimately landed on 2 SKUs, right? We've got one SKU that has that Z2 Extreme in it, that has some of the extra bells and whistles, like the impulse triggers, for example, like that NPU that kind of future readies it for AI stuff, and all of those kind of extra things. And then we have a SKU that is set more affordably, and is ultimately for people who maybe are a bit more casual gamers. They're not like you and me going and tweaking the settings, trying to turn on ray tracing and play at the highest resolutions, right? They just want to pick up and play their games. They want it to be really efficient, have long battery life, and they want to be able to take their games on the go with them, right? Like just that basic, like I want to play my games handheld. Can't necessarily spring for the larger device. Don't necessarily care about the features that it offers anyway. That's the device for them. Does that kind of make sense, right? Because like, and part of it too is that I want to throw this in there now in kind of a generic sense, because I can't always answer these questions specifically. There are a lot of hidden costs when you're developing a device. This is one of the most interesting things for me coming to this job. I used to actually be a reviewer like you guys. I used to be a writer, podcaster, and one of the most interesting things that I have continually learned over my years at Asus is the number of things that you don't always realize have to be taken into consideration when developing a device like this. Because I think a lot of people look at this and they see a tallied list of the components that go into it, and what does that cost? That's what the device costs. But like, you got to factor in profit margin, right? Again, put yourself in the shoes of the company. If we don't make a profit, we won't survive, and we can't keep making devices. You got to factor in the cut for the retailer. You've got to factor in even more hidden costs, like taxes or things from different countries, because that varies all over the world. You've got to factor in, licensing costs for things that you might, whether it's code or a specific technology that might be patented, right? People see like, oh, this tiny little component or thing that I want in the device only costs $2. Why can't you just put it in and it not affect the price of the device? Well, it doesn't always work out that way, because we have to either license the patent for it, or we have to, they're going to charge us a different amount of money than they would charge a consumer to just sell that little tiny component to. All of those things, you don't necessarily realize how that factors into the price of a device. And we have to really try and balance all that, because if we don't hit our price target well, people don't buy it. And you've missed out on your opportunity. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. The business side of that has been really interesting to me to learn. And I like to kind of try and spread that to people as much as I can, because A, I think it's fascinating, and B, it's just like a rare insight into how these devices are made that a lot of companies aren't as transparent about. And we like to try and be a little bit more honest about it with people, because then people understand where we're coming from. And again, like, so much of our stuff is driven by user feedback. We want to kind of collaborate with the community on making the best device we can.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
I completely understand. And also, it's also, people want to save money. So if there's anything that's the price is cheaper, more power to them, So I totally get it, So
we have to take that into account, because we understand that different people have different budgets.
Yeah. Now, I feel like it is important. And again, this is why I wanted to review the white version, because I feel like a lot of the media and creators has been talking only about the Ally X, right? Mm-hmm. And which I understand, powerful console, powerful handheld.
There's more. It's more of the like kind of new Halo tier. Like, that's where a lot of the innovations are made on the high end before they trickle down. Makes sense.
But there is people that will love to play PC games on the go, and I know there's different options now, but they also wanted to learn more about that experience. That's why I feel like it was very important to also review this type of device, not only for me but also for other creators. I think they should get the opportunity also to check it out, because a lot of people been asking a lot of questions like, "How's the white one?" Because it's the cheaper model.
It's the number one thing. Yeah,
they want to go to that one. So for them that would like to invest in the future, what are the things that you guys are working on update-wise and stuff that it's not going to be not only on the X but also on this device? Because it's confidence, man. People want to have confidence. Like, they want to. They're investing this $600. So, what you could tell them so they could be aware in the future if they like to buy Xbox Ally.
So that's a really good question, and I don't know how like specific I can necessarily get, because so far, I'll put it this way. Look at our history with the ROG Ally and the ROG Ally X. And the feature parity that those two devices have, despite the hardware differences. And the same thing with our laptops, right? Our laptops come in a lot of different SKUs, but ultimately, a lot of the software features we offer are available on all of those SKUs, from the bottom of the stack to the top of the stack, right? If we can make it happen on both devices, why wouldn't we? Now, that said, there are things that are maybe more hardware specific, right? Like the NPU built into this might get certain AI features that either aren't available on the white one or run more cloud-based on the white one. Like there may be some differences like that when the hardware requires it. But ultimately, the improvements that we want to make, and the improvements that I think that we've shown in the past that we are committed to constantly making these devices through updates to Armory Crate, that Microsoft is making to the Xbox full screen experience, all of that stuff. We want to support both of these SKUs. There's no one that gets preference over the other just because it's the more premium device, except when the hardware necessitates it, right? Yeah, and I think that white one is a really great device for people who want to play games on the go, who want to get a handheld for the first time, and especially for people who want to be in that Windows ecosystem because they have Game Pass or something like that, or they have games that they want to play that aren't available on other platforms. Man, that was one of the biggest draws for me on this. Is like Windows is my platform at this point. Like I'm pretty stuck in Windows because of Game Pass. It's had such a huge impact on the way that I game, not just in terms of I have all these games available to me, but man, I've discovered some of my all-time favorite games that I would have otherwise never looked at because they weren't in a genre that I played, right? Like that value of Game Pass, I am locked into, and I can't give it up now. And so that's what drives me to devices like this. And that's kind of what we're targeting with that white one as well, is people who want to be in that ecosystem at a more affordable price point.
Last question.
I would just echo what you were saying. That was my draw to the original Ally was, oh, wow, I can now get my Game Pass games natively on a handheld device on the go versus trying to tinker and do a bunch of crazy stuff on other devices to get it to work. So you've obviously carried that forward, and now it's expanded even more because, like we said, the appeal is wherever I've invested in my ecosystem, so to speak, right? Digital store or whatever, I can bring that to this device now, and I can take those games with me and play them natively. PC games, not console games. They're working all that out. Just to be clear. But one final thing I had for you, because I think the most important thing out of this conversation is this is step one. And the big takeaway is you want feedback so that you can continue to improve this product, both on the hardware side and on the software side. So for Asus, where should people go? Because look, they yell at me. So instead of yelling at me, go talk to you directly.
Don't yell at Paris, guys. Everyone listening, stop yelling at Paris.
They're going to do that anyway.
I know it's fun. I know it's hilarious, but no. I'll tell you, it's funny because there is a feedback hub in Armory Crate that you can go to give feedback, but ultimately, it's easier than even that, because if you're writing about what you want on Reddit and in YouTube comments, even if you're yelling at Paris, on Discord, like on our Discord server or on some of the other ROG Ally community servers that have popped up, we see all of it. We are trawling all of those threads and conversations because we are not just soliciting feedback from people who send it directly to us, but we are looking for feedback everywhere we can find it, because that is how we know what the community at large, and not just a small subset of it, wants. So keep doing what you're doing is what I would say. Keep sharing your thoughts with others in the community on Reddit, social media, Discord, wherever it is that you share it. We'll see it. We're always there. Trust us on that.
That's good to hear.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, no, well, I just want to say, man, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely.
For almost 60 minutes. Look at that. Just talk about everything about the it's so
Sorry.
good. I love it. No, I love that. I love this type of conversation because I feel like people not doing interviews, I think that's not good, because you don't want to communicate and share that information to the consumers, to the community, So I think what you're doing, I think, is very important. So thank you so much for taking your time and chatting with us and everything, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on. Like I said, we want to be part of that conversation. We want to be as transparent as we can be within reason, right? Because that's otherwise, how can people have confidence in your product?
Yeah.
Right.
Very
Like
true.
there are so many people in the company that are really passionate about this device and this product, this project. Like, why would we not want to share that passion with everyone else that we know is passionate about it? So that's my favorite part of the job.
And for those who are listening, continue going after Paris. All right. Until next time, we are out. Take care. Bye.